Blondie! It's all ours, Blondie!
In the course of Sergio Leone's masterwork, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Tuco Benedicto Pacifico Juan Maria Ramirez, played by Eli Wallach, manages to steal the entire picture from the other characters in the film. It was not planned this way, as a vehicle for Wallach's virtuosity, but somehow it grew into that as he worked with Sergio Leone to create a lush backstory for Tuco. As viewers, we want to know more about this unusual bandit. Who is he exactly? We want to know how he experiences the world and how he'll respond whenever fortune does not favor him. One of the more beloved characters in the history of Westerns, we see Tuco from virtually every conceivable angle and in every imaginable situation. Taking a bath, digging up a grave, philosophizing about life with his partner, Blondie, being spurned by his brother Pablo, using his own infamy as a wanted criminal as a money-making scheme, defeating a much larger and tougher opponent, and even reconstituting his pistol in an incredibly involved procedure of mixing and matching component parts in the store of an unfortunate shopkeeper, played by Enzo Patito. Over the course of the film, we become engaged by Wallach's screen presence and his comic timing, to the point that Tuco feels like a flesh-and-blood person, someone we know almost too well. His vulnerability and humanity are captivating, whereas his co-stars, Clint Eastwood as Blondie and Lee Van Cleef as Angel Eyes, have no such nuance to their characters. We never learn too much about what motivates them. Tuco, however, we get to know well, though he has a way of continuously subverting our expectations. He is often cruel, cynical, and vicious, though just as often, he is philosophical, introspective, witty, and ironic. Filled with contradictions, he is truly relatable. So let's take a closer look at why he is so memorable, and how, in the best sense, he ends up dominating the film, and how the film becomes, in addition to being an iconic Western, also a highly refined study in character. The title of this film always put me in mind of that saying, good, bad, or indifferent. The reason is that nothing about Tuco stays hidden from us for very long. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's all there. A poverty-stricken childhood, an unfocused rage lurking just below the surface, an enthusiasm for life, an unconventional sense of humor, and an overwhelming need to take savage retribution against anyone who crosses him. Knowing every facet of the character is why we instinctively sympathize with this otherwise crude, rapacious man. He's an emotional whirlwind, sometimes raging out of control,
I'll kill you! I'll kill you!
but just as often we see his childlike exuberance.
Blondie, I'm very happy you're working with me, and we're together again.
Everything Tuco does, he seems to do with an unexpectedly creative sense of style. A case in point is the ease with which he is able to generate hurtful insults when he is initially turned over to the local sheriff's office for a cash reward.
I hope you end up in a graveyard with the cholera and the rabies and the plague.
He takes special delight in attacking Blondie's mother.
I hope your mother ends up in a $2 whorehouse. Your mother is better not to talk of her.
We don't know Tuco well at this point, but he already stands out as someone we are at least curious to know more about.
You snake.
Who is he? Well, we eventually learn a great deal about his upbringing. From the number of times Tuco crosses himself during the film, we know that he received at least some preliminary Catholic religious training. He clearly grasps exactly what is meant by the word sin, but it does not change his behavior in the slightest. For example, upon the death of his friends, he crosses himself, interestingly with his left hand, which he does whenever he's holding a pistol in the right hand. But he remains determined to hang Blondie for abandoning him in the desert. Revenge is all that matters to him at that moment, and many other moments besides. For example, when Blondie informs Tuco that he is being accompanied to recover the gold by Angel Eyes and 4 other men, Tuco's reaction to the news is rather shocking.
I forgot to mention, there's 5 of them.
5?
Yeah, 5 of them.
It doesn't matter. I'll kill them all.
Again, Tuco's religious training does not seem to come into play here. Earlier, when Tuco brings Blondie to the Mission de San Antonio to recover from the injuries which he himself inflicted on Blondie, mostly dehydration and heat exhaustion, we end up learning almost too much about Tuco. It seems likely that Tuco was hoping to reconcile with his brother, Pablo, Father Ramirez, played by Luigi Pistilli, but he's unable to for a number of reasons. First, Pablo was angry that Tuco was estranged from the entire family for so long.
What about our parents?
Only now do you think of them.
Second, Pablo can't be seen to be associating with bandits and people of low character.
And you? Outside of evil, what else have you managed to do?
Third, Tuco shows no remorse about his chosen life.
It seems to me you once had a wife someplace.
Not one, lots of them. One here, one there, wherever I found.
Fourth, Tuco challenges Pablo and makes it more difficult for him to stand in judgment.
You think you're better than I am. Where we came from, if one did not want to die of poverty, one became a priest or a bandit. You became a priest because you were too much of a coward to do what I do.
This scene is painful to watch, perhaps even more than the disturbing brutality that we see going on in the Batterville prison camp. Tuco is aching to be unconditionally loved by someone, for someone to care about his existence. It seems to Tuco that Pablo's brother should want a relationship with him, but Pablo pushes him away. Tuco, in turn, lashes back at him and walks out. Even when they see one another, for the first time in years, Pablo is standoffish. Tuco wishes to hug him, but is unsure if this is either welcome or appropriate.
Let me embrace you. I don't know the right thing.
He quickly realizes that reconciling with Pablo is a non-starter. Pablo's incredulity towards Tuco is so great that it causes Tuco to inquire whether he should even have bothered to say hello.
Did I do wrong?
And Pablo's harsh words,
Go away, and the Lord have mercy on your soul,
are crushing to his brother. Blondie sees and hears the entire exchange and feels sorry for Tuco.
Well, after a meal, there's nothing like a good cigar.
Once they are back on their way, Tuco feels it necessary to lie to Blondie. He tells Blondie that deep down his brother loves him and had actually invited both he and Blondie to stay longer, if they had wished. Since Blondie knows the truth, it is an especially tragic scene, since Tuco is essentially lying to himself, spinning a yarn about how he would prefer the world to be.
My brother is crazy about me. Even a tramp like me, no matter what happens. I know there's a brother somewhere who'll never refuse me a bowl of soup.
Sadly, the truth seems a lot lonelier and tragic than the fiction presented to Blondie. Yet, as I have said, there are other sides to Tuco beyond the fraught relationship with his brother. One instructive example is his entertaining encounter with the unfortunate shopkeeper. After Blondie abandons Tuco in the middle of a desert, he is able to walk back to civilization. Once there, Tuco has his priorities in order. He sets about recreating the type of customized pistol that he prefers. He keeps the owner of the store from closing up shop and torments the poor man for a little while. It turns out that reconstituting his pistol is an incredibly involved procedure, nearly a religious ceremony, taking the best parts from other guns by dismantling them to construct the perfect Tuco gun. This scene is really Tuco's tour de force. Everything he is as a character is on display in this scene. He is a survivor, of course, having crossed the desert without water, and he is a bit of a bully. But he's also a show-off, and also someone who has seen the inherent humor of the situation. The shopkeeper is so unthreatening that Tuco would never hurt such a harmless, grandfatherly-looking man. This is Tuco's own version of being compassionate. He spares the man, except perhaps for the man's feelings, that is, but otherwise Tuco leaves him alive and in one piece. Of course, he does rob him, inevitably, of the $200 that the shopkeeper has on hand. One of the most remarkable things about this film is its subversion of the usual tropes. For example, though the Civil War is raging, the main characters don't see it as too important, except insofar as it could interfere with them finding the gold coins for which they are searching. They do not seem to be particularly interested in what's going on, or who's winning the war. The conflagration is so unimportant to them that it seems more like a gigantic annoyance, so much so that Tuco forgets the name of a significant figure.
Hurrah for the Confederacy! Hurrah! Down with General Grant! Hurrah for General... What's your name? Lee! Huh?
Even Tuco's paranoia can be quite entertaining. When he thinks Angel Eyes has poisoned his food during a meal at the Batterville prison, Angel Eyes has to prove the food is safe by eating some of Tuco's portion.
I knew it.
Then all is forgiven, and Tuco chows down, at least until Angel Eyes puts his hand on Tuco's shoulder, the proverbial shot across the bow. Angel Eyes is not just being kind to Tuco. There are a number of these kinds of comical moments, as when Tuco makes an appeal to Blondie to reveal the name on the grave.
If I get my hands on the $200,000, I'll always honor your memory. If I knew that my last hour had come, I would tell about the gold. I'd tell the name on the grave. After all, what good is the money to you if you're dead?
When Blondie requests that Tuco come closer, Tuco believes that Blondie might be about to reveal the name.
Tell me. You dirty.
Wallach is an incredibly adept comic actor. It is never more evident than when he suddenly has to reverse field and save Blondie after nearly killing him by forcing him to march through the desert for hours without respite, and then realizing that Blondie has been told the name on the grave from Jackson just before Jackson died. So Tuco will now have to nurse Blondie back to health if he wants to know which grave the gold is buried in.
Blondie, don't die. Blondie, don't die. Water, Blondie. Don't drink. It's no good for you. Feel better?
Though he is a hilarious character, Tuco often demonstrates a kind of homespun wisdom and pragmatism, as when he ruminates upon the nature of his partnership with Blondie.
There are two kinds of people in the world, my friend. Those with a rope around their neck and the people who have the job of doing the cutting. Listen, the neck at the end of the rope is mine.
He's trying to make the case that Blondie isn't really risking anything, whereas Tuco is all in every time they run the scam. He lets Blondie know that he'd better not betray him, since after such a betrayal, if he survives, Tuco will never stop looking for him. And this ends up being true after Blondie abandons him in the desert.
Our partnership is untied. Oh, no.
Wait.
Not you. You remain tied. I'll keep the money and you can have the rope.
Once Tuco catches up to someone, he is utterly ruthless. After finding Blondie the first time, he simply intends to hang him and have it done with it.
Adios.
But when that doesn't work out because of an errant cannonball, Tuco is even more merciless the second time around.
Let's eat. That is, I'll eat. Meanwhile, you can enjoy a sunbath.
His casual cruelty is disturbing, but says a great deal about him. When he's in control, he does not believe in mercy and presses his advantage to the fullest. He makes no secret of this, and if others disregard his warning, they pay the price. This is true for both Blondie...
Whoever double-crosses me and leaves me alive, he understands nothing about Tuco.
That's a price.
and Captain Wallace, played by Mario Brega.
What are you doing?
I like big fat men like you. When they fall, they make more noise, and sometimes they never get up.
The idea here is to try to scare people into respecting him, but it doesn't seem to work out insofar as no one seems particularly scared of Tuco, though perhaps they should be. This is demonstrated really clearly when Tuco catches up with Blondie the second time, just as Blondie is about to shoot down Shorty, as he's about to be hanged for his past crimes. Tuco has no scruples about letting the execution continue, since it was exactly the same scam that Blondie was perpetrating with Tuco, and because of Tuco's description of the intensity of the experience...
You never had a rope around your neck. Well, I'm going to tell you something. When that rope starts to pull tight, you can feel the devil bite your ass.
We might have assumed he would show compassion for someone like Shorty, but he feels none whatsoever.
Sorry, Shorty.
He lives by a code, albeit a savage one. Taking vengeance against Blondie is the priority. Shorty is a distraction, and he allows him to die, at least in part, because he knows that Blondie wants to save the poor man, and because Blondie wishes it, Tuco will not permit it. In all things, Tuco thinks in terms of looking out for his own interests first, and he cannot always understand why others don't act similarly. For example, in the scene in which a now one-armed bounty hunter from the opening moments of the film, played by Canadian actor Eli Wallach, finally catches up to Tuco, the bounty hunter makes the unusual decision to make a speech rather than immediately kill Tuco.
I've been looking for you for 8 months. Now I find you in exactly the position that suits me.
Since Tuco carries a pistol with him even in the tub, the man ends up getting killed. At the end of the scene, in one of the most famous ad-libs in history, Wallach decided that the scene needed a punctuation mark, and so added his own pearl of Tuco-esque wisdom.
When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
Tuco is about getting down to business fast. Instead of shooting Tuco, the one-armed bounty hunter starts to narrate how much he's been looking forward to killing Tuco. Because of this need to narrate, he never manages to achieve his goal. Of course, the bathtub scene is surprising and humorous, and Tuco triumphs over the bounty hunter, but Tuco tends to evoke our sympathy more through the extraordinary number of indignities, setbacks, and utter disrespect that he's on the receiving end of in this film.
You pig! You want to get me killed! When'd you unload it?
It's Bill Carson's tobacco.
You know you've got a face beautiful enough to be worth $2,000?
Way back to town is only 70 miles. Oh, if you save your breath, I feel a man like you could manage it. Adios.
Throughout the film, literally from the opening scene when he bursts through the window of the saloon having shot the bounty hunters, until the final scene when he is standing on the grave marker and waiting to hang, at least until Blondie shoots the rope, Tuco's life does not really seem to be his own. His is an ultimately fruitless search for respect or something approaching it. With the exception of the shopkeeper, everyone, Angel Eyes, Blondie, Captain Wallace, the sheriff, his brother Pablo, and the various bounty hunters, they all tend to treat Tuco as someone who cannot be taken seriously. They never treat him as he wishes to be treated. In some ways, the person he becomes feels like overcompensation for something, most likely his life of poverty. In the end, there is probably something universal in this, that many people as they go through life feel hard done by, and want to be treated, if not less disrespectfully, then at least not as someone who can be as easily dismissed. Of course, like the rest of humanity, Tuco is a work in progress. He is so flawed, angry, vulnerable, and yet also comical, contemplative, and driven by inner demons that we cannot help identifying with this peculiar bandit who crosses himself after shooting enemies, who has a fraught relationship with his brother, who sometimes eats cigars, who has a unique way with an insult, and who understands only too well his reasons for becoming a bandit. Most people are not so introspective. Tuco may be unable to achieve his goal, to either be feared or respected or both, but he does get half the stolen coins, which is Blondie showing more respect than usual, and he is still alive, which is more than Captain Wallace, Angel Eyes, or the one-armed bounty hunter can say. All in all, he probably broke even and then some for all the risks, beatings, danger, and trouble he endured. But we know that he will never see it this way, that no matter how well things worked out, he will tend to interpret whatever occurs as his getting the short end of the stick again. He can't help it. This is who Tuco is, and we love him for it. We watch to find out more about him, and in this way, he worms his way into our hearts. By being the most fascinating, volatile, and original thing on the screen, that's how Tuco manages to steal the good, the bad, and the ugly from Angel Eyes and Blondie. Thank you so much for watching. I'm very grateful for your interest in my videos and in this channel in general. Your positive comments and your encouragement are really pleasant to hear, and I appreciate them. Please do not forget to subscribe, since it makes the long hours working on such deep dives much easier. It shows that the work is appreciated and meaningful. Thank you once again for your time.
Carson, yeah, glad to meet you, Carson. I'm Lincoln's grandfather. What was that you said about the dollars?